Meteorologist Jackson Chastain here with the latest edition of WeatherWise. Today we talk something that I think we're all well accustomed to, especially with the weather we've had the past week or so that was just so horribly cold. It's the polar vortex. It's a really big factor when it comes to bringing extremely cold temperatures to much of the region. What it is it's a low pressure area of low pressure over the north and south poles. It's typically strongest in the wintertime and weakest in the summer. Remember, though, that is just a norm. It can obviously weaken or strengthen sometimes in certain circumstances, which happened recently, of course, but it's always present. It's miles above the surface, and when it gets disrupted, it brings lots of cold air to the region. And it's important to note the difference between the polar vortex and the polar jet stream, which is much further south, and it's not nearly as high up in the air. It's only about 5 to 9 miles compared to the polar vortex. That's about 10 to 30 miles. And basically what happens is when you have that strong low, it's containing all that cold air in a stable situation, which typically happens more often in the winter. You're going to have a strengthening of this low pressure, and you're going to have Arctic air flowing from west to east in this flow with these winds, with kind of that upper level jet stream. And so as a result, you're going to get below average temperatures in places like Canada, and then above average temperatures in places like the United States, especially further south. Now remember, this is just a norm. Obviously last week we saw a disruption of that polar jet stream, which is not polar jet stream, polar vortex, which is a result of the weakening of this low pressure. And basically when this low pressure weakens, imagine it like a malleable ball. If you were to stretch out that ball in different places, it's going to dip down and it's going to move over a larger surface area. And as it does so, it's going to inundate more of those areas with cold temperatures. So when you get a weaker low pressure, you'll often get a high pressure that settles in between the gaps of where this low pressure is not dipping down into. And so you can get very dynamic weather when you get a weakening of this polar vortex. And of course, what will often happen is you'll get well below average temperatures being brought down to places where you don't normally see them. Again, you see temperatures in the negatives or at close to zero in places like Tennessee or Arkansas, where you, again, don't typically see that. And you see above average temperatures in places where that high pressure settles in and keeps the air clear. And of course, you can get hard freezes, damages to crops, severe weather impacts when this polar jet stream when this polar vortex really dips down. But that's all I have for the latest edition of WeatherWise. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to post those to Facebook, to Twitter, to our email. But otherwise, you guys have a great one.
WeatherWise is brought to you by Four County Electric Power Association.